here at the 5th Annual Temple Mount Awareness Day, and today we are honored to have with us Dr. Gabriel Barkay of Bar Ilan University. He is the co-director of the Temple Mount Sifting Project and a member of the Committee for the Prevention of the Destruction of Antiquities on the Temple Mounts. And Dr. Barkay is really the leading expert on this subject of the destruction of the antiquities. Doctor, we know this is something that's been going on for a long time. It's something that's very painful to us, the destruction of, you tell us how many thousands of tons of debris from the second and even the first temple. What is the significance of this destruction, and what is the scope of the loss for the Jewish people, and what does it really mean to us, and what does it mean to you as an archaeologist, the purposeful destruction of antiquities on the Temple Mount?
First of all, one should remember that the Temple Mount occupies about 1/6 of the total area of the old city of Jerusalem. Beside being the soul, heart, and spirit of the Jewish people, the Temple Mount is also the most important archaeological site in this country, and maybe all around the world. The Temple Mount has within it a treasure of archaeological value that is unparalleled anywhere else in the world. The Temple Mount is an archaeological site, but unlike the rest of Jerusalem, it is a black hole in the history of archaeology, because Jerusalem is the most excavated place upon earth. And paradoxically, the Temple Mount was never touched by the spade of the archaeologist, and that is because of political reasons. So the most important place is the less known place, archaeologically. Temple Mount was never ever touched by the archaeologists, and there was no pre-initiated dig ever taking place upon the Temple Mount, unlike the rest of Jerusalem. Things began to change upon the Temple Mount in the 1990s as a result of ideas emerging from Washington, D.C. The Bill Clinton administration very naively thought that they are going to solve all the problems of the world, including the conflict between Jews and Arabs. And one of the think tanks of Bill Jefferson Clinton told him that the Temple Mount is the crux of the problem, that if the problem of the Temple Mount is solved, then the rest of the conflict in the Near East will be a piece of cake. So another think tank of Bill Clinton offered to have in the future to come agreement between the parties to have a division, a horizontal division of sovereignty upon the Temple Mount, that the Muslims would have the above ground sovereignty, that is what includes the shrines of the Muslims upon the Temple Mount, while the Jews, that is Israeli sovereignty, would be upon the remains of the temples of the Jews, which are in the subground. First of all, this is an ingenious idea, but at the same time it is super idiotic, because you can't have a building standing in one country and the plumbing in another country. You can't have sovereignty upon the subground of the Temple Mount, and all the accessibility to the subground would be through another sovereignty. In any case, this idea leaked out, and the Muslims began in the 1990s, as a result of these negotiations and these ideas raised in Washington, they began like mad to penetrate into the subground of the Temple Mount in order to change the reality and in order to prevent such a possibility of Israeli sovereignty in the future to come, though it was impractical upon the subground of the Temple Mount. The result was very sad. For centuries and centuries, there were two major structures of the Muslims upon the Temple Mount. the edifice of the Dome of the Rock and the building of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. In 1996, a gigantic mosque was inaugurated in the southeastern corner of the Temple Mount, built into an ancient structure known as Solomon's Stables. Solomon's Stables, the name was given by the Crusaders. They were the only ones who would dare to take horses into that sacred enclosure of the Temple Mount. In any case, it was neither built by Solomon nor served as stables, otherwise the name is okay. In any case, they built into that subterranean structure, which includes 13 large vaultings supported by pillars. They built there a mosque. The mosque is a gigantic mosque. It has room for somewhere between 10,000 and 15,000 people. It is a gigantic mosque, the largest one in the western part of the Near East. They named it the prayer place of Marwan, Al-Marwani Masalla. Now, very interestingly, that name does not appear anywhere in history, and it gives the building a kind of a halo of antiquity, as Marwan, after whom they named the place, is the father of Abdul Malik, the builder of the Dome of the Rock. That was 1996. So the building has modern infrastructure. The surface inside the building was lowered, and much material was extracted from the building and dumped outside. The next stage was in 1998, when yet another mosque was inaugurated upon the Temple Mount, again changing the status quo which was upon the Temple Mount for centuries. This is the mosque built into a subterranean passageway connecting the southern wall of Temple Mount with the upper platform of the center of the Temple Mount. This passageway was one of the Temple Mount gates in Second Temple period. It is known as the Western Khulda Gate or as the Double Gate Passageway. This place is partially preserved from Second Temple period, from the time of King Herod the Great. And for 2,000 years, there are some pillars there and some decorated domes, which are the best examples ever found of Jewish art of Second Temple period. They are preserved there, and this subterranean passageway became another mosque. It is now known by the name of the Ancient Aqsa, Al-Aqsa Al-Qadima in Arabic. This mosque was inaugurated in 1998. In 1999, a request was passed to the Israeli authorities for allowing an emergency exit for the illicitly built mosque inside the Solomon Stables. The permission was granted, and instead of an emergency exit, we have a monumental entrance into that mosque from the north. And in order to have that entrance, a gigantic pit was barbarically, brutally excavated by heavy machinery, by bulldozers that worked there in November of 1999. They worked there day and night, having a pit which was about 12 meters in depth, about 40 meters in length. This pit was dug by destroying whatever was found there, and it was messed up, the whole soil, and approximately 400 truckloads of earth saturated with the history of the Temple Mount were removed from the Temple Mount, being dumped in the beginning at the city dump, where it was mixed with modern garbage, making it impossible for archaeologists to look through it, and the other Part of it was dumped into a place forbidden for dumping in the Kidron Valley. Since 2004, we reclaimed that soil which was removed illicitly from the Temple Mount, and we try to save as much as possible knowledge from that soil. As if you had a corpse of a family member in front of you. At least we have the corpse. At least we have it. We try to sift through that soil, though it is messed up, though it doesn't. We do not know the finds, from what depth did they come, what object came next to the other. Although that fact, we try to save as much as possible knowledge from it, and we have a project of sifting soil, which is also an educational project, trying to have young people come and feel with their own fingers the history of the Temple Mount and its significance.
And many important finds have been.
We have tens of thousands of finds covering altogether many thousands of years of the history of the Temple Mount. We have approximately 20% of the finds which are datable being from First Temple period. So we have much important material. This is not the place and time to describe
Professor,
it.
You describe this action as brutal and barbaric, the action which the pit which was opened and by which these items were removed. Why, we don't understand, I've never been able to understand, why is there no mechanism in place by the powerful Antiquities Authority, legal representatives of the government of Israel in the place that's the most important archaeologically for the Jewish people in the world? Why is there no mechanism of preservation, of cooperation, of supervision?
The Temple Mount is unlike any other place. Also, concerning the prevention of destruction of antiquities. The Antiquities Authority works at the Temple Mount with its hands tied behind its back. The Temple Mount is a place in which the Israeli authorities, though there is officially an Israeli sovereignty upon the Temple Mount, they are not free. The agencies of law, the Jerusalem municipality or the Ministry of Housing or the Antiquities Authority, they have no authority whatsoever upon the Temple Mount because of political reasons. In any case, the authority of Antiquities Authority upon the Temple Mount is limited, and they cannot supervise freely as they should, as they do in all other parts of the State of Israel. Now, together with the destruction of antiquities that took place, turning ancient buildings into mosques and changing the nature of the Temple Mount, there was a new ideology also emerging in the 1990s. This ideology among Arabs is very interesting because it replaces older approaches to the Temple Mount. And the Temple Mount, which was known as the Noble Sanctuary, or Haram al-Sharif in Arabic, is now forgotten. That term is not used anymore. It is Al-Aqsa. The whole Temple Mount is Al-Aqsa, and not only the Al-Aqsa Mosque. That includes, by the way, also the esplanade of the Western Wall, or the Wailing Wall, of which is outside the Temple Mount, and that includes the entire vicinity.
So Noble Sanctuary was a reference obliquely to the Holy Temple?
Of course it was. Of course it was. In any case, the Noble Sanctuary became Al-Aqsa. Why? Because for a Muslim in Indonesia or a Muslim in India, the Noble Sanctuary is unknown, but the term Al-Aqsa is Quranic, and therefore it is of significance. One should remember that the Quran doesn't have even once a mentioning of the name Jerusalem in it, but never mind. In any case, that came together with a total denial of the Jewish link to the Temple Mount and the denial of the existence of the first and second temples. This temple destruction, this temple denial among the Arabs, to my amazement, catches supporters in the Western world who have a tendency to support it because of political reasons. I was interviewed lately by a representative of the BBC. A very distinguished person interviewed me, and he asked by he started his interview by asking me, what proof do you have that there was ever a temple of the Jews upon the Temple Mount? I said that I don't need any proof. We have the Bible, we have Flavius Josephus, we have the Mishnah, Tractate Midot, which tells us about the temple. We have dozens of references all around ancient literature to the temple, so I don't need a proof. I asked, what proof do you have that water is wet? That is obvious. And the existence of the temple is obvious. Now he said, what physical proof do you have? I said, let me dig in the Temple Mount. I'll supply you with the proof, with the physical proof. You can't hold the stick or the rope in both hands, prevent excavations upon the Temple Mount, and say there are no physical proofs. But we have physical proofs also. We have inscriptions from Second Temple period, preventing the Gentiles from entering into the inner precincts of the temple, and we have Hebrew inscription from the southwestern corner of the Temple Mount, relating to the place of blowing, where the priesthood would blow the trumpet in order to herald the coming of the Sabbath. In any case, the temple denial is, to my humble view, something much more important than the Holocaust denial. I'm a Holocaust survivor. I was born in a ghetto in the 1940s, in the middle of Europe. And there are Holocaust denials. There are deniers all over. But we have films taken by the perpetrators. We have the documents, the archives. We have the death camps. We have the victims who are survivors of the Holocaust. And yet there is denial. On the other hand, concerning the temple was destroyed more than 2,000 years ago. We do not have living witnesses. We have only the literary witnesses. And dismissing all that as something worthless, something non-historical, something which doesn't testify to the existence of the temple, that is, I think, a very, very serious sin. The temple denial is also very significant because the Muslims themselves sanctified the Temple Mount because of the temple's existence in the past, in that very same spot. The Dome of the Rock, one of the most magnificent buildings upon earth, was inaugurated in 691 by the Umayyad dynasty upon the Temple Mount as a replacement of Solomon's temple. And Jerusalem was named by the Arabs themselves as place of the temple, Beit el-Maqdis. So the temple denial is not only hurting the feelings of Jews and Christians who know about the existence of the temple, not only from the Jewish sources, but also from the New Testament, where there are more than 20 references to the temple of Jerusalem. It is a denial of Arabic history itself. And it is harmful to the Arabic sources. And therefore, it is a very, very strange and very criminal misuse of history and distortion of history for political purposes.
Many times, we read that the Waqf is attending to this or that restoration or just important renovation on the Temple Mount, and they deny that they're was anything there or that they're doing anything. I want to ask you, as the expert and as an archaeologist, a straight question. When we know of this destruction that you're documenting, is this destruction purposeful, and is it a manifestation of a will to erase history and deny the temple?
For sure it is. The need of restoration exists. That is undeniable. Temple Mount is an active place where there are lots of people participating in the Islamic worship, and it has to be taken care of. No doubt about that. But under that umbrella of restorations, there were attempts to cover up some areas in which there were remains of walls popping up from Second Temple period. You cannot see them anymore because they are covered by garden soil. So I can say for sure that there is a tendency, a general tendency of eliminating the remains of antiquity upon the Temple Mount in order to create a totally different scenario of ancient history upon the Temple Mount, which would go together with the temple denial and the philosophy, which is new, because Muslims themselves and booklets published by the Waqf itself in the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, they say, the Waqf itself, the Islamic Trust of the Temple Mount, says in the booklets which were distributed to tourists that the Temple Mount is beyond any doubt the place of Solomon's temple and the Second Temple, and now you cannot find a Muslim that would say this is the place of the Jewish temple. And President Clinton himself was shocked, terribly shocked, when Yasser Arafat told him in 2000 that he doesn't know about any temple of the Jews upon the Temple Mount. He was in total shock, which represents the naivete of the American politicians.
The picture that you paint for us is unfortunately rather bleak. As a leading member of the Committee for the Prevention of the Destruction of Antiquities on the Temple Mount, have you had any positive response from the government or anyone in authority? Do you see any hope of any intervention? Is the government responsive to you?
Yes, I can say it is very frustrating sometimes. I'm active in this committee for more than a decade, and I thought that our intervention would not be needed, but it is unfortunately still needed. It is sometimes very frustrating because people do not understand what we want. We try to monitor whatever goes on upon the Temple Mount. We try to do political lobbying with Israeli politicians and representatives of different organs of the Israeli politics in order to prevent any further destruction upon the Temple Mount. I can say that altogether we succeeded, because there is today much more presence of the police and much less destruction and much more control upon what goes on upon the Temple Mount.
Well, so ultimately you think that there is a prevention now, a further erosion of the situation? And
I sincerely hope so.
Well, I think it's so important for everyone watching to know what's really going on and to be informed of the scope of the destruction and to understand from your expertise what this motivation is. And I think we've really never had it as clear and from such a succinct and professional viewpoint. So, Professor Dr. Gabriel Barkay, Bar Ilan University, and the co-chairman the co-founder of the Temple Mount Sifting Project. It's a tremendous privilege and honor for you to be joining us today. Thank you for coming and being with us on the 5th annual Temple Mount Awareness Day.
Thank you very much.
Wow, that was profound. That was so moving, disturbing even. But, you know, we have to get to the truth, and we have to understand the matters before us if we're going to make headway and really start to clean things up. So
he really clarified some things that people are unsure about. You know, the concept of how this recent spate of destruction began, and the fact that it most certainly is purposeful and deliberate, and just his love of the Temple Mount is so moving. And just one thing I want to reiterate is how he expressed the phenomenon of Holy Temple denial. So serious, such a serious iniquity that is taking place and spreading today. That is something that everybody has to be very, very aware of, and I think everybody can play a part in fighting that. And you know, the theme, I think, in the State of Israel, the motif of the Holocaust is used sometimes, and people criticize it. Maybe it's used too often, and I know you and I maybe would never have the audacity to bring it up as a benchmark, because I don't know if I would feel that I have that right. But to hear from a man of his stature, who is a Holocaust survivor, for him to say that what's going on now as far as this terrible syndrome of temple denial being perpetrated by Islam is worse than Holocaust denial, that is just so powerful. That says a lot. Now, lest we get start to stew in the seriousness, we're going to an extreme.
Something completely different.
It's like such extremes, because we're going now from the wanton, deliberate campaign of the destruction of the evidence of the Holy Temple. We're going now as far away from that as you can, metaphorically, and we are going towards an expression of such faith and love for the temple and dedication to Hashem's will, that now we're going to see what it's like for people who are so living the restoration of the temple that they want to know exactly how every detail of the temple service can be resumed. So it's like from the ashes of the Holocaust of the temple to the immediate rebuilding of the temple.
And I had the privilege of being the assistant to Svia Savir, who is part of the Women's Forum for the Mikdash, for the Holy Temple.
Women for the Holy Temple.
And I was her assistant in preparing a Korban Mincha, a meal offering, which is offered in the Holy Temple. And actually it's part of a workshop that she presents around the country. And I think the actual workshop in its entirety is about an hour long or so. So we've taken some excerpts here in order to highlight what she does, what it's all about, and to get a feeling of the excitement and even the science of preparing a proper Korban Mincha, proper meal offering.
So there's a network of women in Israel that are working towards all different aspects of the restoration of temple service, temple preparation, temple consciousness. There's one group of women that are working on the weaving of the huge curtain that separates between the Holy and the Holy of Holies in the Holy Temple. And they're doing all sorts of teaching and seminars, and Yitzchak and I got into a car, and Yosef also was behind the camera, and we drove into the beautiful biblical heartland of the Shomron, Samaria. And we drove to Alon Moreh, which is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the first place that Abraham, the patriarch, came to in the land of Israel. This is an old established community, Alon Moreh, and we were guests of Tzvia Savir, and Yitzchak just rolled up his sleeves and got a cooking lesson. Again, this is a snippet from a much more extensive, longer seminar that Tzvi really needs an hour to give over all of this information, but she really showed us what it's like to go through the stages of preparation of this particular type of offering in the Holy Temple, which can be brought. It is not from an animal. It is a meal offering. It's made of different ingredients, a certain type of flour and oil, and there's like other aspects of temple studies. There are so many details that are clarified in the Talmud and in other parts of the oral tradition that Moses handed down in every generation from the Sinai revelation of exactly how to do this. Who thought that there would be women today that have their feet on the ground? She's this very solid person, but yet they are so ready for the rebuilding of the temple that in her home, she is going to be taking out all the cooking ingredients and getting ready to bring a mincha, meal offering in the Holy Temple.